So what are your rules you learned in this? You've done content for 25 years more, right? 25 plus years, right? You're 43 now, right?
45 I'm now.
You're 45. So you've done content for 20, 30 years, right? From the age of 15 till now. Is there a playbook to get the content right in the OTT era?
There's no playbook, but what is
Some
important
rules,
is,
some do's, some don'ts.
yeah. So, the one thing that I've learned the hard way in life is that it is a commercial art, and if everybody attached to it is going to make some money on it, then it is worth everybody's while. And as a creator, it is very important to make it worth everybody's while,
So
And
first is good storytelling.
absolutely, but I'm saying that, what good is good storytelling? That I've done a lot of work with a lot of passion and it's not worked and everybody's lost money on it, And does that then get defined as good work? You know?
Mm.
So that is a very hard truth of life, and somebody starting off in life starting off his journey, will debate me and say that, good things will always, reap its benefit later in life and you will get some reward for it. I don't think, I think your conduct is something that will always remain with you, and that is something that you will bear the fruit of, whether you succeed or no, as long as your conduct is good, but content is something that is good if everybody attached to it is benefiting from it, whether it is the viewer, whether it is the investor, whether it is the platform, whether it is you yourself as a storyteller. And more and more I've understood that it's more and more of a team effort, where the creator is one of the pieces in the jigsaw, and he or she is not the complete jigsaw. Most of us creators have this whole God syndrome where we believe that we are the creators and we have done everything. And it's really humbling to understand that, it's not the creator alone, that does everything. There is a financial aspect to it. There's a marketing aspect to it. There are so many aspects to it, and the sooner we learn that, it is a collaborative effort, and more so on the OTT, because most of the time it's not one director directing one series also. I myself have a director who directs along with me, who takes care of my second units or takes care of certain B work of mine, so because the content is so much, you got to produce 240 minutes of edited footage, which is equivalent to 4 films or 2 films, so it becomes far more collaborative there, so that's a big learning, and you have to make people money. That's the only way of survival in this business,
Fantastic. What are the don'ts? These are mostly the do's. What are the don'ts? Give us 1 or 2 anecdotes, like you went overrun on the cost. Give us 1 or 2 things that you learned the hard way.
I have, in two incidents, especially, there was a movie that I mentioned earlier called Drona, that I made. It was a very ambitious film, at that point in 2008, it was budgeted at 50 or 55 crores, which is equivalent to 150 or 200 crores today, and Eros took the, the punt on me and Abhishek on it. And a big learning from there was that we kept on increasing the cost because, we wanted to give something that is so unique and so, inspirational and something that nobody had seen before. But, even if that had worked, it would have been very difficult for them to recover their money, so I also didn't listen to a lot of people. I didn't understand, what are the, necessities in that. And then I made the same mistake on television again, a few years later, about 7, 8, 9 years later, after I had a good run on television, then I got the biggest show on television called Aram, for Star Plus, which was from the same writer of Bahubali, and along with the Star Plus team, we had great plans for the show, and it was supposed to be 65 episodes. They pulled it off in 24 episodes. So yet again, I overextended myself, but this time it was for another reason. It wasn't my own, madness or my own eccentricity that was leading me to it. It was more of, wanting to do, wanting to please, please the people who are putting the money behind it. So I overextended myself on it. And eventually they just pulled the plug when it didn't work for them, and I was left holding a dead baby in my arm. And so these two incidents I'll never forget in my life. I did it once, and then I did it again for a different reason. After that, that's when I understood that there's no point in overextending yourself. If at the end of the day there's going to be so much unhappiness around you. So you got to prioritize your creative instincts on which product and how much, and then choose to lend it that much. And I think a thought like this can only come to you after you've been through a certain amount of experiences. For example, a lot of people, the worst thing that can happen to them is that their experiments work, and then they believe that that experiment is the way to work. But they don't believe that it was an aberration.
Accidental experiment.
Yeah. Or, they tried something out of the box and it really worked, and it's great to try something out of the box. And I keep on doing it myself, but it has to be done in a certain amount of a budget, or a certain, sense of realism to it, which is a big learning. And so, if you want to experiment, and this is my advice to all the young guys out there, if you want to experiment, please go ahead and experiment, because new things come out of experiment. But keep an eye on the budget, and keep an eye on, who are you catering to, and it needs to work. Then it needs to work in a small niche, and that's the main thing. And content, Anurag, moving forward, how it's become, the more and more niche you become, the more chances of you working. Because,
so you rather than being everything to everyone, you be something to very few people.
Exactly. So instead of trying to please everybody, you try and please somebody, and that could be a smaller market, that could be a smaller, section, but like, I want to bring your attention back to Rejects. We are focusing strictly on the young, teenage, young adult crowd. Both my shows, Hello Mini and Rejects, both have been blockbusters on OTT, or so I've been informed by the platforms. Hence, we're going to season 2 and 3.
It's black and white. The traffic, the download. Absolutely. So there is no ambiguity there.
Absolutely, especially on MX, because it's an AVOD platform. Hello Mini has crossed, they announced that it's crossed, I think, over 120 million views. So it's very encouraging, that you have 15 episodes and you have 120 million views. I don't know, that's a crazy number. Generally, you have such high views for a song, so it could be a 2-3 minute song, it could be a short form content, or maybe 5-minute short video. But this is a, I would say like 300 and 450 minutes, something crazy like that. 450 minutes into 120 million. So it's like crazy, the viewership of that show. So, like I was saying, so then I practiced it, and I put forward, focusing just on the young adult crowd, which is very young and restless and sexy and bold, and we stuck to that audience, and we tried to go completely into that audience, and not being apologetic about anything, and also at the same time trying to create our own style, which is not grim and gritty, and it is glamorous. It's the world that I grew up in. It's more glamorous. It's slick. It's Indian, but it's real. But there's another reality also, right? Everything is not only Anurag's. I mean, not your Anurag, but Kashyap's reality. There are other realities.
I'm still married to my only one wife.
No. I mean, even I'm married to my only one wife.
And I'm happy about it. I mean, joke, but I'm very happy. I joke all the time when she's not around. So I want to ask you 2-3 personal questions. And this series, we're launching a media entrepreneurship series on E4M. So I want you to be on the first webinar, and I'll come. What did you learn from your father? The 15 years that you saw him, what did you learn that has held you in good stead today?
Well, what I learned from my father was less about the craft and more as a person, because I was too young to learn the craft at that point. I learned that, and I understood that he was a damn nice guy, and he was a great guy, and he helped out everybody, and I think that's the one thing that stuck with me in my head, and today also I'm living off that goodwill, to a very large extent. Is the relationships that he made and how he stuck his neck out for people and stood up for people. I wish I can be half as nice as him, and I was earlier mentioning about conduct, and I learned conduct from him. He was a decent man, and he was a great man, and he conducted himself with niceness. And I think I would say empathy is the thing that I learned from him. He was a very compassionate and empathic man. So compassion is something that I learned from him.
And tell me, what did you learn? You said at the age of 15 you started working with your mother. What did you learn from your mother when you started doing business? And your mom. I mean,
well, mom was always a housewife, so she was pretty much thrown into this scenario, So my mama was there to help her out, and some other family well-wishers, family friends were there to help her out. But what my mother taught me was about being positive, and she was like, I can't even imagine, she was probably 41 years old when she lost her husband, and she had 4 kids, to bring up, and an incomplete movie. She was somebody who was very positive, and I wish I could be as fearless as her, because she to walk into a film office and deal with financiers and brokers, and that time it is a very different kind of an industry,
30 years back.
Yeah, 30 years back, it was a very, very, very different industry. And looking forward and moving on is something that I learned from my mother. She's a very positive person, so every time there's a setback in my career for me, it can't be as bad as losing your father, so then I move forward. So that was the best thing and the worst thing that could have happened to me in my life.
Thank you. And what have you learned from your wife? She came from Tinsel Town. She was at the peak of her career when you are close to the peak. What have you learned from your wife? I know recently she had a medical condition, and by God's grace and your love and doctor, she's been able to overcome that. But overall, even before that, and what have you learned?
Sonali comes from a very humble upbringing and a very humble household, and she joined the movies because the household needed money, for survival. Her father was a government servant, and he was picked on because he was a very simpleton, and she started doing ramp shows and modeling, and then she from there it was just it was never the love of craft or the love of the medium that attracted her. It was a survival game for her, and that is something that I learned from her, is that and I came from the completely diametrically opposite side of the film industry,
Privilege,
what you would call
and filmmaking was in the blood.
Privilege, went to the best schools, best colleges.
Mayo
in
College.
spite of losing my dad,
College.
had all the best contacts, had all everything was on a platter in front of me. So we were diametrically opposite, and we are still very, very opposite to each other. But I learned grit from her, and she proved it again and again, whether her survival skills and her grit, and she's a very gritty person. And there's one thing that we discussed, and she told me once that people only want to work with people who are busy, and people only want to work with people who don't have time, and that's something that got etched into my mind. And this is something
By the
that
way, I say the same. I've been saying it for 20 years. People call me saying you're busy. I said I'm busy because I make time for people. Only deal with busy people because they're making time for people. They're doing things. That's why. So work with them.
Absolutely.
Well, you've heard it in 8 years at least 50 times.
So I think that's an amazing philosophy to have, because going by the privilege that I come from, I mean, till recently, when my movies didn't work, I sat back, I procrastinated, thought about
You
what would really
sometimes you
appeal
blame
to me.
yourself. Oh, I could have done this. I
I
could
could
have
have
done
done
that.
this. I could have
Why
done
did
this.
I?
Yes,
We
story.
all do that, Goldie.
Now I
We
should
all do
make
that.
this. Now I
We
should
all do
make
that.
that.
We do
And
all do that.
I realized that I was trapping myself up into my own knots. Till then I broke away and I just started picking up work that was fitting into a couple of criteria of mine. So whether it was television or it's web or tomorrow it could be films. There have to be a couple of criteria that fit into my scheme of thinking. It has to suit my aesthetics, it has to suit my wallet, it has to suit my time, and boom, I'm ready to go. And that's the only three criteria that should work.
Thank you. What have you learned from Srishti or your other siblings? I don't know the other two. So.
Well, we're a bunch of four, and the eldest is Srishti, second is me, the third one after me is Tanya, and the one after her is Shraddha. So Srishti and me used to work together. Srishti was from an advertising background. She was working in a production house, and I pulled her in when we were starting Angare with Mahesh Bhatt because I needed help. So she had some production. She had worked outside in the world, in the real world, as she used to call it. So I pulled her in, and now she's obviously doing a corporate job at Netflix. And touchwood, I'm very impressed with her. The amount of movies that she's brought out is incredible for just one lady to do that. And I'm very happy for her. The one after me is Tanya, and she's a patisserie chef. She's she does these amazing cakes and tarts and stuff like that. She studied in Cordon Bleu, and she's come back, and she runs a small business by herself. So we are all overweight because of her. And the youngest, Shraddha, has joined me now because after Shrishti left, I needed someone of another family member to join me. So like I wooed Shrishti many years ago, I wooed Shraddha back in. And Shraddha is somebody who has worked in, worked in an agency. I think JWT she was working in as a producer over there. So I've got her in, and she handles a lot of my operations and production. So,
fantastic. So what have you learned from each of your siblings?
Each of my siblings.
I will tell them this is unreal that you haven't learned anything.
No. I'm just trying to recollect it. I've learned so much. A lot of Shrishti is like my mom. She's a very positive person. And she's a people's person. So Shrishti and Shraddha are very similar. Shrishti, Shraddha, and my mom are very similar. They're very extroverted, and they're very people's people, and they're very positive, and they always move forward in life. Tanya, me, and my dad are quite similar. We are three of us are slightly introverted. Tanya is much more introverted than me because she can choose to be, and both of us are far more shy, and less of a people's people. We're very, open in a small group of people. But to the world, like for me to do this, it's taken me so many years to actually come out and start giving interviews and push my show myself and stuff like that. I should never do that. You know that, Anurag. I've been in the business for so long, and I should just just bring out my product and think that magically the product will talk for itself. But if you don't talk about the product ain't going to talk. So I've learned from Shraddha and Shrishti of actually being out there and pushing yourself and pushing your ideas and start talking about it. And from actually both Tanya and me have learned that from Srishti and Shraddha. I would say that.
Brilliant. Coming back to content and entrepreneurship, last 2 months there'll be no production, or very little, whatever can happen from home, friends. What do you see happening post 15 June? So let's say the lockdown goes away, COVID is on a receding timeline, sanitation becomes a way of life, distancing becomes a way of life, masks. So how does the business of production, what are your plans? What will you do? Of course, you have 2 super hit series, so you'll produce more of it. The question I'm trying to ask is, will the production budget shrink or will they expand? There'll be so much of work because the content consumption has gone up. So how do you see the scenario between 15th June to 15th October, the 3 months after that?
I don't see any reason why OTT platform budget should shrink. I don't see any reason why why that should happen. Because most of them are SWOTs, and SWOT doesn't depend on advertising. I can understand if AWOD decides to give it a bit of a cut, but I don't see any reason why SWOT should. If anything, subscription must be on its way up now. Just now, uh, I've heard that the GCs have been talking about cutting budgets
because their advertising revenues have come down.
Advertising revenue has gone down, but I don't see how they're going to cut budgets even more. Content making in India is so cheap, Anurag. And how much will they exploit a independent producer? It's just shameful. The exploitation that a producer goes through, because there's so many producers, and there's in such a disorganized sector. That we just get exploited all the time. So the technicians make money, and the channels the networks make money, and the producer, today it's becoming more risky to make a television show, a regular linear TV show, than to make even a movie. It's become that risky because you have no guarantee and you have no safety net for producers. So if that budget cut happens, it will be very unfortunate, because I don't think that 6 months or 1 year, maybe they should produce less content, and not cut the budgets, if they want to do an overall cut. Because
you're saying OTT will continue to be same, but TV may cut budgets.
Yeah, TV may cut budget, and I don't think it's got that much to do with advertising. I think it's got more to do with the new TRA guidelines regarding the set-top box.
New tariff order.
Pardon?
The new NTO.
Yeah, the new. I think it's got to do more with that than actually. I think using this whole COVID and this whole advertising.
Well, COVID has been another setback, but
yeah, COVID is another blow. But advertising will pick up, and it will come back with a big bang as soon as the supply chains gets reinstated. So I don't see them saying that, okay, we're going to share some profits with you guys, right? They aren't going to share any profits with any producers. So, but that's an individual choice. I mean, what can I do if people are not going to give me budgets, and I've got to make it in the same budget or in the lesser budget? But now you also spoke about the practices while shooting, right? I feel that when I was shooting, I was just telling Ruhail also that when I was shooting in Thailand, and I was shooting in Thailand all of Feb and March during for rejects, and we had certain protocols in place while we were shooting. So we had these masks on, and we had these hand sanitizers, and we had we took everybody's temperature before they entered the set. But that was because Bangkok and Thailand had already dealt with SARS, so they knew how to work in a unit, keeping in mind a pandemic or an epidemic at that point, So I think similar kind of practices will be put into place over here. But going by what happened when the liquor shops open, or when Iftari happens, or when some Chhat Puja happens, I don't think there's going to be any social distancing in anybody's thing.
I just want to bring a point of Karnataka has allowed shooting of GC.
Yes.
From 25th, they'll be shooting. And the condition is that the actor has to wear the costume from his home. And he cannot, you cannot take a long shot, outdoor shot. You have to take as much of indoors in your scripts. Your scripts would also change now. The script writer.
No, I think that's just it's temporary, because you look at was there any social distancing when the liquor shop opened? There was no social distancing. Was there any social distancing when I believe there was some big puja happening in Karnataka or Bihar? I don't know where, but everybody was out with all their thalis, praying for COVID to go away, but maintaining no social distancing. There was no social distancing. I don't see any social distancing happening during Iftari. So there are. It's not going to happen, boss.
But tell me, if there's a scenario wherein you cannot shoot outdoors, but you can shoot indoors, how would do you think a lot of scripts have to be rewritten? A lot of things will change in that way.
I don't think so, because it doesn't make any sense to me, because if somebody's carrying the germs, carrying it indoor or outdoor, what difference does it make? It's going to be the same, if you're not going to keep a distance, and if you're not going to wear a mask, and if you're going to get the disease, you're going to get the disease, So, but that's my view on it, and
you said you said that you have preferred digital because it combines film and television. That you have 50 years of, your production house has been there. But would we see more films from your production house as we move along?
On digital, maybe. We have a couple of films.
Traditional films, the normal films.
Theatrical, I'm not looking at it at the moment. I'm not pursuing it, so I don't know. I can't say, I'm not too kicked about it at the moment.
And right now there is another, OTTs and multiplexes are having a discussion about, they don't want films to be released on OTT. And PVR said that, we won't take those films that have been released on OTT. Tell me.
That's PVR has not said that. Have they said that?
They have said that. They have said that today, that we won't release those pictures.
That's like saying blackmailing. No, that's straight on blackmailing, So let them say that to all the stars, no? Then what will they release?
Right.
So I think that's a very childish statement if they've given that statement. I haven't read that statement.
Yeah,
but if they have, so if they have given that statement, I think it's a very childish statement, because how is it anybody's problem how a producer wants to recover his money? When it's a free market, the theaters and the multiplexes and the programmers also decide as to what they think they want to run, right?
Right.
There's so many small good films that don't get good play. They don't get good timings. They don't even get released sometimes, because the theater chain doesn't think it's good enough, So, I mean, how is it anybody's problem if Sujit wants to release his movie on a digital platform? Had it been commissioned earlier, then, Amazon is in a position to, hire the, services of all these three men attached to it, irrespective of whether it was going to release in the theater or no.
I also want to ask, who do you look up to for content? Are there people that you respect in the industry and you think, oh, they also do good work. I wish I could have done work like that. I mean, of course, it's project to project when you look at a piece of content, but generally, who are the people you look up to in your business?
Well, I think that Anurag and Vikramaditya are doing decent work, and they're doing very interesting work.
Anurag Motwani and Vikramaditya.
Anurag Motwani and Vikram Motwani. I think they're both doing interesting work. I believe this Pata logo is supposed to be amazing. It's released the same day as Rejects. I believe even that's supposed to be very good. So there's some interesting work happening out there, Apart from that, the Indian content, I saw the show on Alt. There's this another man called Goldie only, Siddharth Sen Gupta. He's a very interesting filmmaker. He did the show called Apharan on Alt, which is a fantastic show, which is hasn't got its due as yet, but it's an amazing show, and I'm really looking forward to what he's doing next. And I found Imtiaz's series also quite interesting. He made She. I thought that was also quite interesting, So there are quite a few people out there who are doing interesting work, I'm looking forward to their content. Zoya is doing such good work, with Made in Heaven and the other stuff that she's planning. So her production house, Tiger Baby, is something I'm looking forward to content from them, So yeah, it's all.
I just ask one last question. We have 10 minutes, and then. Has the OTT coming of OTT kind of stopped the star system that we had? You had a star and you would build a narrative around him. Has the narrative itself become the star now? That's my question.
Well, that's a bit of a yes and no. When I started OTT, everybody used to tell me that, oh, we don't need a star. It's just the story. But now it's come back to the same thing. They want a known face to attract the attention because there's so much of content out there. So I see it more and more turning into a star system of a different sort on the OTT also in the coming days.
How do these 2 months have impacted the industry, the film industry, the content industry, the television industry, the OTT? So if the industry would have gone on normal and made 100 rupees, will it make 80, 70, 50, 60? April, May are gone.
April, May are gone. Even I don't see even June. For us, at least we can develop stuff. We can get stuff written.
As in you can do
and
scripting, you can keep, as we
you
call
can do
development.
pre-shooting and post-shooting stuff, but actually the creation, basically, shooting is the making of it, the filming of it has stopped, so that's all going to get piled up, and it's all going to, everybody's going to be scurrying around to try and do it together, So I think it will have, it's not impacting right now, but I think in the next 6 months, all this is going to catch up in a very, very bad way, in a very big way,
The people are going to TikTok, Insta, doing their own content to get noticed. What is your one word of advice for them to get noticed? And they're going all over just to get that fame that they're looking for. What is your advice to them?
My advice is that, I've noticed, and I follow a lot of people on TikTok also, I watch them on Insta and on TikTok, and I feel anybody who's genuinely that person and portraying that, they always work, So I think authenticity is something that is working. So as long as you're authentic to yourself and your brand, you're going to stand out and work. So if you're not inherently the kind of person who will attract audience on TikTok, you should not be on.
What is the role of, is the viewership habits of, viewers changed in this COVID? Do you believe, has there been any change, good or bad?
There has been a little bit of change on the streaming front because there's lack of content on television. So a little bit more family audiences are coming onto the OTTs now, whereby which OTT was always supposed to be your single screen, like your getaway from your family. So the men can watch something differently, the women can watch something differently, the kids are watching it separately. But it's becoming, because of this lockdown, the whole family is together. So it's becoming more of a community viewing. Now, whether that remains in practice or not is something to be seen. And accordingly, the content will start getting shaped for that.
And tell me, what are your predictions for the future? Give me 2-3 predictions for our business, for yourself. What do you tell yourself going forward? I think that's what I'm going to do. You said narrow, differentiated, don't be everything to everyone, build for a certain audience.
So I would say that, less is more is my mantra, So the more, the lesser you try and please more people, the more successful you're going to be and the more forward you're going to be, because, the viewership is going to get more and more fragmented, and becoming more and more specific. So you should do content for a specific audience and be true to that, and there are more chances of it working then.
Good. So I think we look forward to having another conversation with you soon, maybe on a live webinar. Of course, this will go as content. It will get edited, and Rohel will make it really look super. Cut out the nonsense like me out of it. And Rohel, anything you want to ask?
I just want to finally, how is the quarantine treating you? How are you dealing with these?
Yeah, what have you done 2 months?
50 days.
No, like I was telling Rohil earlier also that I was doing my post-production, but I got to spend a lot of time with my son. He's 14. So we read some Shakespeare together. We had not read Shakespeare together. Then we also read some Manto together, some obviously translated from Urdu to English, Manto. So I think it has been interesting to, and then I introduced him to Shakespeare and Manto, and he introduced me to basketball. And, we saw this documentary, The Last Dance, based on Chicago Bulls.
Sunday I will see it, yeah.
It's fantastic, that documentary. So I've learned about Formula One and baseball, Formula One and basketball, and he's learned Shakespeare and Manto from me. So we've been spending time like that.
It's good to talk to you. All the best. And
lovely.
I thought, and we'll involve you wherever you can involve loudest.
Bye, Rohit. Bye. Thanks.